Beneath the crashing waves and the thunder of the storm lies the realm of a god who rules not only the sea, but the very essence of power. He is the Earth Shaker, the tamer of horses, the god whose trident can split mountains and calm tempests. Brother to Zeus and Hades, lord of the deep and sovereign of all waters, he is Poseidon. In this video, we'll dive into the myths, legends, and mysteries surrounding the Greek god of the sea. This is the story of Poseidon, the god who held the ocean in the palm of his hand. Poseidon was the Olympian god of the sea, earthquakes, floods, droughts, and horses. In Roman mythology, he was known as Neptune. He was a son of the Titans Cronus and Rhea and the grandson of Uranos, the personification of the sky, and Gaia, the earth. His siblings included Zeus, Hades, Hera, Demeter, and Hestia. At birth, Poseidon was swallowed whole by his father, Cronus, along with his siblings. However, Zeus later enlisted the help of the goddess Metis, who tricked Cronus into drinking a magical elixir that forced him to regurgitate his children. According to other sources, Rhea hid Poseidon after his birth among a flock of lambs. To deceive Cronus, she presented him with a newborn foal, which he devoured, believing it to be his son. Poseidon was typically depicted as a mature, powerful figure with a sturdy build, dark beard, and wielding his signature weapon, the trident. During the Titanomachy, the war between the Olympians and Titans, the Cyclops forged a magical trident for Poseidon. Fighting alongside Zeus and Hades, he helped overthrow the Titans, who were then imprisoned in Tartarus. After the war, Poseidon and his brothers drew lots to divide the cosmos. He was allotted the sea, securing his dominion over the oceans. To further solidify his rule, he married the sea goddess Amphitrite, the eldest daughter of Nereus, who was the firstborn son of Pontus, the primordial personification of the sea. Poseidon's golden palace, adorned with gems and coral, was said to lie in the depths of the sea near Aegae in Euboea. There, he kept his magnificent horses with brazen hooves and golden manes, which he used to ride across the waves in a chariot. As he traveled, the sea calmed before him, and sea creatures recognized their ruler, playfully gathering around him. Poseidon had numerous mortal offspring, including giants such as Antaeus, the Cyclops Polyphemus, and magical horses like Pegasus and Arion. He also fathered various kings, heroes, and villains, including Theseus and Bellerophon. The god was known for seducing many nymphs and mortal women, often taking the form of an animal or flowing water. Some of his most famous conquests included the Gorgon Medusa, Tyro, Amymone, and Aethra, the mother of the hero Theseus. Poseidon was the father of Peleus and Neleus by Tyro, the daughter of Salmoneus, making him the divine ancestor of the royal families of Thessaly and Messenia. Many of his other sons became rulers across the Greek world. With numerous consorts, he fathered countless offspring, including those he had with his wife, the Oceanid Amphitrite, among them the sea creature Triton. His sacred animals included the bull, horse, and dolphin. As the god of the sea, he was closely associated with fish and other marine creatures. His chariot was drawn by hippocampi, fish-tailed horses that carried him across the waves. One of the most famous creatures associated with him in myth was the Cretan bull, the sire of the Minotaur. Poseidon was often called Poseidon Taurios, Poseidon of the bull. One of the most famous bull-related myths involving Poseidon is the story of King Minos of Crete. Wishing to prove his divine right to rule, Minos prayed to Poseidon to send him a bull from the sea, one he promised to sacrifice in the god's honor. Poseidon obliged, sending a magnificent white bull that rose from the waves like a gift from the deep. But Minos, dazzled by the beast's beauty, broke his vow and kept the bull for himself. Poseidon's fury was swift and deeply mythic. As punishment, he cursed Minos' wife Pasiphae, causing her to fall in unnatural love with the bull. With help from the inventor Daedalus, Pasiphae consummated this strange desire, and from this union, the monstrous Minotaur was born, half man, half bull, and confined to the labyrinth beneath the palace of Knossos. Long before Theseus was hailed as the great hero and king of Athens, he was known as the brave son of Aegeus, or, in some versions, the demigod son of Poseidon, god of the sea, born from a union between Aethra and either the mortal king or the sea god. Theseus's greatest test came when he volunteered to travel to Crete as one of the Athenian tributes offered to King Minos. 7 young men and 7 maidens sent every 9 years to be sacrificed to the Minotaur, who was imprisoned in the labyrinth, a vast and twisted maze designed by the genius Daedalus. The beast devoured any who entered. With the help of the daughter of Minos, Princess Ariadne, who had fallen in love with him, Theseus entered the labyrinth, armed with a sword and a thread given to him by Ariadne to find his way back. He fought and killed the Minotaur, ending the blood tribute and freeing Athens from its dark obligation. In another myth highlighting Poseidon's connection to bulls, the tragic story of Phaedra and Hippolytus unfolds. Phaedra, the wife of the Athenian hero Theseus, was struck with an unnatural desire for her stepson Hippolytus. When he rejected Phaedra's advances, she, overcome with shame and despair, falsely accused him of attempting to violate her. Theseus, enraged by what he believed to be a grievous betrayal, invoked one of the 3 curses granted to him by his divine father, Poseidon. Theseus had long held the power to call upon his divine father in times of need. In response, Poseidon sent a monstrous bull or a sea creature surging from the sea as Hippolytus drove his chariot along the shore. The beast terrified his horses, causing them to bolt and drag him violently to his death. The tale of Hippolytus does not end with his tragic death. In Roman mythology, it was said that the goddess Artemis, known to the Romans as Diana, mourned the loss of her devoted follower and sought to bring him back to life. Her plea was answered by Asclepius, the divine healer and god of medicine. Asclepius, famed for his unparalleled healing abilities, was believed to possess the power to resurrect the dead, a gift he received through his deep knowledge of medicinal herbs and possibly divine instruction, from observing a serpent, a sacred creature linked to healing and transformation. Through his divine intervention, Hippolytus was restored to life. Artemis then transported him to the Italian region of Latium, where he lived under the new name Virbius. In this new guise, he became a local deity and was worshipped alongside Diana in the sacred grove of Aricia near Lake Nemi. While Poseidon is most famously known as the god of the sea, his dominion stretched far beyond the waves. Among his many sacred symbols, none were more deeply associated with him than the horse. This might seem surprising at first. What does a land-dwelling creature like a horse have to do with a god of the ocean? But in ancient Greek thought, Poseidon was more than just the sea god. He was also known as Poseidon Hippios, the god of horses. According to myth, Poseidon was credited with the creation of the first horse. There are varying traditions. One of the most infamous myths tells of how Poseidon assaulted his sister, Demeter, while she was wandering the earth in search of her abducted daughter, Persephone. To escape him, Demeter transformed into a mare, but Poseidon pursued her by turning into a stallion. From this encounter, the swift and intelligent horse Arion was born, known for his incredible speed, and in some versions had the gift of speech and prophecy. Other accounts state that Poseidon recreated Arion to woo Demeter's affections, or to win the contest against Athena to become the patron god of Athens. As an alternative to Poseidon creating a stream, he created the first horse. In cultic practice, Poseidon was worshipped as a horse god, especially in Thessaly and Arcadia, where he was believed to preside over horse breeding and racing. His association with horses also extended to earthquakes, another of his divine domains. Some ancient Greeks believed that Poseidon struck the earth with his trident to cause tremors, and the galloping of hooves became a poetic metaphor for the rumbling of the earth. Poseidon's sacred plants were the pine tree and wild celery, the latter used to crown victors at the Isthmian Games, a festival held in his honor. These athletic contests, which included horse races, were celebrated every 2 years near the Isthmus of Corinth. Poseidon's marriage to Amphitrite. In the days when the gods still walked among mortals and the sea whispered secrets to the wind, Poseidon, the mighty ruler of the oceans, cast his gaze upon the beautiful Amphitrite. She was one of the Nereids, daughters of the wise sea god Nereus and the Oceanid Doris, and among her many sisters, she shone the brightest. Her hair flowed like sea foam upon the waves, and her eyes held the depth of the ocean's endless mysteries. One fateful day, as the Nereids performed a celestial dance upon the shores of Naxos, Poseidon beheld Amphitrite in all her grace. He was struck by her beauty, and his heart, as wild and tempestuous as the sea itself, yearned for her. He declared before all the gods and spirits of the deep that she would be his queen. But Amphitrite, unlike the mortals who trembled at the power of the gods, did not welcome his claim. She wished to remain free, untouched by the bonds of marriage. With the swiftness of the waves, she fled from him, seeking refuge in the distant Atlas Mountains, where even the gods seldom ventured. Poseidon, however, was not a god easily dissuaded. The sea was vast, but it belonged to him, and no corner of it could hide Amphitrite forever. He sent forth many creatures in search of her, beasts of the deep swift currents and even the winds, but she evaded them all. At last, it was Delphinus, the gentle and wise dolphin, who took it upon himself to find the goddess and persuade her to return. Gliding through the waves and beyond the reach of even the strongest tides, Delphinus journeyed to the farthest edges of the world until he found Amphitrite hidden among the towering peaks. He did not seek to command her, nor did he try to force her hand. Instead, he spoke to her with kindness, telling her of Poseidon's love, not as a conqueror, but as one who wished to share the sea with her, to honor her as its queen. Touched by Delphinus's words, Amphitrite relented. Perhaps it was not fear of being claimed, but the promise of power alongside Poseidon that swayed her heart. She returned to the sea, not as a captive, but as a goddess who chose her throne. The ocean stilled, and the storms quieted, as Poseidon welcomed her with open arms. Their union was celebrated in the depths, where sea nymphs sang, and creatures of the deep rejoiced. From that day forth, Amphitrite ruled beside him, her presence calming his rage and bringing balance to the shifting tides. As for Delphinus, Poseidon did not forget his loyalty. In gratitude, the god lifted him to the heavens, placing him among the stars as the constellation Delphinus, where he would forever shine as a reminder of the love he had helped to unite. The myth of Laomedon and Poseidon. Laomedon was a king of Troy in Greek mythology, son of Ilus and grandson of Tros. He was the father of a number of children, including Podarces, who was later better known as Priam, and Hesione. His uncle was Ganymede, who was kidnapped by Zeus and became the cupbearer of the gods on Mount Olympus. To compensate for the kidnapping, Zeus gifted a pair of divine horses to Laomedon's grandfather, Tros. As punishment for their rebellion against Zeus, the gods Apollo and Poseidon were transformed into mortal men for a year and sent to serve King Laomedon by building the walls of Troy. Before work commenced, Laomedon promised the two men generous payment for their service. This was no ordinary task. They labored tirelessly to create the massive, impenetrable walls that would later become legendary. However, after the walls were finished, Laomedon, unaware of the two men's true identity, failed to keep his promise of generous payment. This act of ingratitude angered both Poseidon and Apollo. As a result, they sent a plague upon the city and, in Poseidon's case, a fearsome sea monster to ravage the shores of Troy. After being advised by an oracle, Laomedon, desperate to save his city, planned to sacrifice his daughter Hesione to the monster. Heracles, on his way back from the land of the Amazons, happened to arrive and offered to slay the sea monster in exchange for the horses that Zeus had once gifted to Laomedon's grandfather, Tros. Laomedon agreed, and Heracles heroically killed the beast, rescuing Hesione. Yet once again, Laomedon betrayed his promise and refused to reward Heracles with the horses. This final act of treachery led to Heracles' vengeance. Later, Heracles returned, leading an army of warriors. Among them was Telamon of Salamis, a formidable warrior and future father of Ajax the Great, and Oikles, the father of the seer Amphitrite. Together they sailed to Troy with vengeance in their hearts and fire in their sails. King Laomedon and all his sons were killed, except Podarces and Tithonus, who was not present. After the battle, Heracles gifted Hesione to Telamon, either as a token of victory or gratitude, and Heracles offered Hesione the chance to save one of the captives from death or slavery. She chose her youngest sibling, Podarces. To ransom his life, she offered her golden veil, and from this symbolic act, Podarces was renamed to Priam, meaning to ransom or to buy. Priam would later become the last great king of Troy, rebuilding the city and ushering in a golden age, only to face destruction once more years later. According to legend, Laomedon was buried near the Scaean Gate, and it was believed that Troy would remain safe as long as Laomedon's grave remained undisturbed. Poseidon and the Odyssey, the wrath of the sea god. Odysseus, the great hero of the Trojan War and king of Ithaca, found himself in a perilous journey home after the fall of Troy. Though his heroic deeds were celebrated across the ancient world, his return would be anything but smooth. His first encounter, after setting sail with his fleet, led him and his men to the land of the Cyclops, fierce, one-eyed giants known for their savage ways. Enticed by the promise of resources and the possibility of gaining favor, Odysseus and 12 of his men approached the island of the Cyclops Polyphemus. As soon as they entered his cave, the Cyclops trapped them, blocking the entrance with a massive boulder. Polyphemus then began to devour Odysseus's men, one by one, starting with 2 and continuing until he had consumed 6 of them. Faced with this terrifying reality, Odysseus hatched a daring plan to escape. Feigning friendship, Odysseus introduced himself to Polyphemus as Utis, meaning nobody. He then offered Polyphemus a generous gift, a wine given to him by Meron, a priest of Apollo. The Cyclops, eager to drink, consumed the wine in large quantities, becoming drunk and drowsy. This gave Odysseus the opportunity to drive a sharpened stake into Polyphemus's single, unblinking eye, blinding the beast. When Polyphemus, in agony, cried out for help, he shouted, "Nobody is killing me by fraud." His fellow Cyclopes, thinking he had been attacked by nobody, left him in peace. The next morning, Odysseus and his remaining men fled the cave by hiding under the bellies of Polyphemus's sheep, knowing that the blinded monster would not be able to see them. As they sailed away, Odysseus, his pride and arrogance getting the better of him, revealed his true identity to Polyphemus. "I am Odysseus, son of Laertes, king of Ithaca," he boasted. Polyphemus, now furious and deeply humiliated, prayed to his father Poseidon for revenge. "Father, avenge my suffering, curse Odysseus and make his journey home impossible. May he never see Ithaca again." Poseidon, a god of immense power and wrath, heard his son's plea. Furious at the insult to his family, Poseidon swore to make Odysseus' journey home a nightmare. The sea god's anger would shape the hero's fate for the next decade, for Poseidon did not take lightly any affront to his kin. From that moment on, the seas became treacherous and violent for Odysseus. Poseidon summoned violent storms and tempests, scattering Odysseus' fleet across the vast seas, sending the hero on a tumultuous odyssey that would stretch out for 10 long years. I would like to conclude our video with the Homeric hymn to Poseidon, translated by Evelyn White. I begin to sing about Poseidon, the great god, mover of the earth and fruitless sea, god of the deep, who is also lord of Helicon and wide Aegae, O shaker of the earth, to be a tamer of horses and a savior of ships. Hail Poseidon, holder of the earth, dark-haired lord, O blessed one, be kindly in heart, and help those who voyage in ships. Thank you for joining me on this voyage through Poseidon's story. If you enjoyed this dive into ancient myth, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more journeys into the gods and legends of the ancient world. Until next time, may your seas be calm and your path guided by the stars.